Welcome back to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans, which you can now get on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. From San Francisco, I'm your host, Zach Moore. This evening, I'm very happy to be joined in the Mountain Time Zone by Paige and in the Eastern Time Zone by Chad and Tim. Just a quick South Stands disclaimer. We are not trained media professionals. We are not former players or coaches. We do not have access to current Ohio State players and coaches. We are Ohio State alums, rabid Buckeye fans, observers from afar who love talking Buckeye football. And we hope you'll enjoy this free-flowing conversation this evening about Ohio State's matchup with Nebraska in Lincoln this Saturday at 7:30 Eastern on ABC. I think we're getting Herb Street and Fowler on the call. The Buckeyes are a 17.5-point favorite in this one, as the line stands now, according to ESPN.com. I just want to set the stage real quick with a couple of stats on Nebraska. They're known as an offensive football team, and they come into this contest 25th nationally in total offense. They're averaging almost 500 yards a game at 490. They're 34th nationally in rushing offense, averaging about 219 a game, and 43rd nationally in passing offense, averaging 270 yards per game. The stat to pay attention to in the passing game, though, is they're averaging almost 16 yards per completion. So they're a pretty explosive offense. As most of you know, the Huskers are led by star quarterback Adrian Martinez. He comes into this game averaging about 62% of his passes. He's got 7 passing touchdowns so far this year and 2 picks. He's been sacked 10 times, including 6 in Nebraska's Week 2 loss at Colorado. So that's something to pay attention to. He's going to be looking at probably more pressure up front than he's seen so far with Chase Young and company. In the run game, Nebraska is led by tailback Maurice Washington, who averages just under 8 yards per carry. Washington is kind of a poor man's Curtis Samuel. He's also really good out of the backfield as a receiver. And the Huskers lost to Colorado in Week 2. He had 118 yards receiving out of the backfield. So pretty versatile back. Could be a tough cover for Ohio State linebackers and safeties. And finally, Nebraska is led in the receiving game by 5'9" junior J.D. Spielman. Spielman is averaging just over 21 yards per reception. He's a very explosive player, very tough cover for the Ohio State defense. So now that the stage is set, why don't we go around the horn with predictions? Paige, I want to start with you on this one. Why don't you tell me how you see this game going in and give me your score prediction?
So before we get to that, don't you think we should take a look back and see who won last week's predictions?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, not really necessary.
Let me guess, Paige. Who won?
No, I don't really care who won. I just think the guy that called out the fucking safety is the winner, and that'd be this guy.
That was a brilliant call, dude. I love it.
I mean, I've never been any good at math, so you guys help me out here. I think the two that get closest to the final score were, Chad, you were 62-3, and then my father-in-law, Ken Meyer, he had it 63-10. So I'm terrible at math, but I don't know, maybe we just call it a tie.
Yeah,
my father-in-law. I don't know.
I don't think it's really important. I think just the person that had the balls to call a safety and then see it happen is.
Dude, I'm so bummed out.
Good call. That was a good call. I'll give you that.
Field goal Page.
Yeah. So going on to this weekend. So what I'm thinking here is, and I don't know why I kind of have this sneaking suspicion, but it occurs to me that this particular Ohio State squad might be pretty nasty on the road. They seem like they have a demeanor to them that would relish road wins. Obviously, they've only had one road game thus far, but there's just something about them. I mean, again, going back to a few of my earlier points from the earlier pods, it's hard to draw a whole lot of conclusions based on the competition thus far, but I just think that there's something about this team that road environments are not going to freak them out one bit. I think the slow start last week bodes well, something that Day could use to get them motivated. I think they come out. I think it'll be a close game for a while, but I just can't see Nebraska being able to hang with them. So I'm going with 50-20, the Buckeyes.
50-20, wow. All right.
Like it.
Okay.
Like it.
Hey, Chad, let's kick it over to you. How do you see this one playing out, and give me your score prediction?
Well, you know what? As I said last week on the podcast, there are still rabid rumors going around that Scott Frost will be suiting up for this game. Adrian Martinez has been brought to the slot receiver / running back, and Scott Frost will be the quarterback. But that's the only way I really see this game being close. But in all sincerity, though, I mean, that's a tough place to play. Lincoln is not they got the guy, those comedy dudes, the country dudes, whatever their names are, like the guy that has the movies, whatever. They got all those rabid fans there. But I'll tell you what, like, this Buckeye team has swagger, and like I keep saying, there's a new sheriff in town. I don't feel that there is going to be a letdown at any time this year. I think these boys are playing with a chip on their shoulder. They realize they let last year one get by because of poor coaching, and I think there's a gap that's been filled there. So I think these boys are going to come out like strong, play hard, and I see it Paige throughout the 50-10. I like that, but I'm thinking more like 47-7.
47-7. Wow, you think they're going to bottle up the Nebraska offense?
Oh, I think
7 points. Wow. All right.
Yeah. So can we pause here for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
What are you talking about? Country Western? I mean, I don't even have a fucking clue what you're talking about.
Those dudes. No, there's like that. It'll come to me. Just give me a second.
Oh, great.
There's a couple of those boys. Like,
this is only a 20-minute pod, bud. Let's. Okay, we can move on.
Yeah, those country boys,
Yeah, those country Western singers.
No,
all right, Chad.
There's a couple of those, but.
Okay, we'll circle back to you at the end of the pod, see if it comes to mind. All right, TG, what do you think, man? How do you see this one?
So I went back and took a look at some of the stats from last year's game, and I seem to remember that game like being so close and hanging on for dear life, and actually it really kind of wasn't. Ohio State, I think, was up 36-20 with like 8 minutes left or something along those lines, and then the defense just let them get another 10 points, so it ended up, or 36-21, ended up 36-31. And, if our defense had just been the silver bullets that we're used to, I think it would have been a solid win. Nebraska's better. Ohio State's better. It's at Nebraska. But, when I kind of think back to last year and even some other years, when you talk about some of these teams like Indiana's and Minnesota's, Ohio State just wasn't beating those teams the way they should. And this year what we're seeing is Ohio State winning games the way Ohio State should win games when they play those opponents. And I think that continues in Lincoln this weekend. Having said that, I think Nebraska is a quality football team, and I don't see 47-7 or 52-7 or whatever, but I do see 38-20, which covers the spread, and that's what Ohio State's supposed to do, and that's what I see them doing.
38-20. Okay. All right. Before I give my prediction, I got a couple to deliver on behalf of, first of all, our comrade Matt Sloan, who couldn't be with us tonight. Matt sees this one playing out 38-17. TG, so you guys are really close on your predictions.
Shocker.
Hey, did we get a prediction from Tansy at all, or is he abstaining this week?
No,
he's cooking up some ribeye.
Cooking up. Yeah. and I think I got my father-in-law Ken Meyer hooked. He wants to deliver another prediction, and how could I tell him no? 55-13 Ohio. Totally. 55-13 Ohio State is his prediction. Yeah, I mean, he sees it like Paige. He does not see a close game. 5 total TDs for Justin Fields, he says. 4 passing, 1 on the ground, 2 rushing TDs for Dobbins. As for my prediction, I got Ohio State winning this. Yeah. As for my prediction, I got Ohio State winning this one 41-20. I do think the Nebraska offense is explosive. And I think they have some guys that, even against a good defense, can do some things. I had mentioned tailback Maurice Washington. He worries me a little bit. He has great speed. He's a very versatile back out of the backfield. He averages almost 8 yards a carry as a runner, and he's a very dangerous receiver out of the backfield. As I'd mentioned against Colorado earlier this year, he had 118 yards out of the backfield. So that's a guy to watch. J.D. Spielman, he's got that profile of a small, elusive receiver that's given us trouble in years past. So that's a guy to watch. So I think Nebraska's going to move the ball. I think they're going to score some points. I like them for 20 in this game, and I can even see an Ohio State stand in the red zone or two where Nebraska drives and the Ohio State defense is able to get stops in the red zone. But looking at the Nebraska defense, while it's improved from recent past, they're still only 56 nationally in total defense. They're giving up about 357 a game. They're 41st nationally in against the run, which is better. They're giving up about 117 yards per game. I'm not sure they've seen a rushing attack quite as potent as Ohio State's, though. And they're 81st against the pass, giving up almost 240 yards per game. So I think there's going to be plenty of yards and big plays to be had against this Nebraska defense. And Paige, I'm with you. I don't see that this is a veteran team now. Lots of juniors and seniors on this team, and I don't see them being daunted by this road test. And in fact, I think the nighttime environment there, prime time, I think they're going to feed off that. And I think this team is on high alert from the results of the 2017 Iowa and 2018 Purdue games. Many of the guys that are playing were on the team at those times, and I think they're on high alert, and I think they're going to deliver in this game. So 41-20 is my prediction, and I'm looking forward to it. We've all been kind of starving for this game, right? We've been on. Yeah. We've had the appetizer. It's time to move on to the main course.
Z, that Wandell Robinson, that kid is a legitimate receiver. He kind of reminds me of that Rondell Moore for Purdue. Kid's like he's an elite talent. So, but I think Kuda and I think those boys will keep him down.
Well, I was reading this. Sorry, Zach. I just read this big article that Day and Washington decided that they're just going to have Tough, shadow that guy the whole game. So we're going to be covered there. You're going to put, the fleet-footed Borland and just take him out. So I think you're totally mistaken.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Hey,
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to see what we all thought about what the linebackers are going to look like in this game. You saw Borland and Warner come out early, and I know it was Miami of Ohio, but you saw those guys struggle a bit. Warner in coverage with a pass interference in the end zone, and then Borland looking, really bad trying to run down some of the Miami ball carriers. I have a feeling we might see more of, some of our other linebackers, our younger guys, the more athletic guys, in this game instead of Warner and Borland. Sorry, Paige, were you going to make a point, or Tim? One of you guys was going to chime in, and I cut you off.
I was going to say something about Tough Borland borrowing. We discussed this on last week's pod, but Tough Borland borrowing Tim's Frankenstein shoes, Lurch shoes. And
do those exist? Are those a real thing? What are?
Yeah, they are real. But I do see. I do see that Borland, like you said, I think you alluded to this last week, Z, about him being in like the red zone defense. But I've been reading a lot of stuff this week about Browning and Mitchell and those guys. Like they're going to be in the game most of the time. And
I would expect that we'd see more. Yeah, to your point, Chad, I think we're going to see more Browning in the middle in this game, and this might also be the Brendan White game. Right? We might see him getting more snaps than Pete Warner in this one. Those are the two that have been kind of alternating at that position. And, in some of these earlier games, Ohio State in some of their defensive alignment or their pre-snap movement, at times they've had Warner playing deep safety, sprinting back to deep safety as things are happening at the line of scrimmage, which to me sounds like an utter disaster in this game against Nebraska. I tend to think we'll see more of Browning and more of Brendan White in this game just because of the matchups and the kinds of skill players that Nebraska is bringing into this game. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that, and I think the other thing is I think they put Wade on Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, he had Rondale Moore last year and did a pretty good job without, if he didn't get run into by Pryor on a couple of plays, he had him fairly well covered. But, I think they put him on that kid, and he's got the speed, and he's a lot bigger. He's 6'1", that kid's 5'10". I mean, he should be able to match up well against that guy, and I think be able to shut him down. He's quick, but I think Wade's got the experience, and I think should be a good matchup.
Right. Hey, fellas, any other comments on this matchup?
No, I you know what? I'm excited. I'm excited for the first night game, man. I'm so over these nooners, man. It's like I'm just stoked for a 7:30 kickoff. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be fun. 7:30 on ABC. Sounds like we're going to get, as I said earlier, Herb Street and Fowler on the call for that one. And I believe game day is also going to be in Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
We're going to be hyping this one up all night. Yeah.
See, can I make one more comment?
Sure, go ahead, Chad.
Going back to Paige. Hey, I got it now. It's Larry the Cable Guy, dude. It's like Jeff Foxworthy and friends. It's Larry the Cable Guy, dude. He's like the biggest Nebraska Cornhusker fan on the planet. He'll be on the sidelines and shit, dude. Larry the Cable Guy, dude.
I didn't know that. I shall go back and change my prediction now. Just flip it in reverse, I guess.
Well, one question for Paige, since you're there, buddy, would be, how good is Colorado? Because Colorado was down and kind of came back in that game, and Nebraska sort of threw it away. But the Buffs got them at home, and how good are the Buffs?
So the Buffs are never very good. It's funny you ask. I saw a buddy of mine right before the season started at the gym, huge Buffs fan, and I asked him what's the over/under on wins for the season, and he literally said 4, and I was like, 4? That's terrible. So that poor fan base is so beaten down. I think it sort of skews their football knowledge. CU won last week. I can't remember who they beat. So I think they're 3-1. CU's okay. But they lost. They're not a juggernaut by any stretch.
Well, Paige, would you say
Paige,
they're
after the big
daily
Sorry,
life?
Chad, I was just going to
go ahead, buddy.
Chad, I was just going to add to Paige's assessment of Colorado. So after the big win over Nebraska, they turned around the following week and they lost to Air Force. So it's hard it's hard to judge, right? You beat Air Force. Maybe they're just one of these teams who can, they can rise up in a given week and play with a quality team, but the consistency just isn't there yet, and they're prone to losing to service academies. Paige, you were going to make a point. Go ahead.
No, I was just I thought they beat somebody somewhat decent last week, but it's escaping me.
They beat Arizona State. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan State.
What? Yeah, Michigan State, and they're ranked, but Arizona State's not that good. They're probably okay. They're probably a 500 team. The big play in that CU game was a flea flicker from the end zone that went for 98 yards. It totally turned the momentum, and then those people went crazy and up in Boulder. But CU's not that awesome.
Well, so then the other interesting fact about that, right, is you say, all right, CU's not that great, and then they had to play Illinois, who's definitively the worst team in the Big Ten for the last 20 years, and they barely escaped with a win at Illinois. Mm-hmm. So
4 turnovers.
Maybe the hype train is going a little fast on Nebraska.
That's a good point, Tim. One thing I wanted to point out that could actually be a big factor in this game, if you look at the Illinois game and you go back a couple of weeks to the Colorado game, 7 Nebraska turnovers combined in those 2 games. I believe 5 of them are fumbles and 1 was a pick. They have a little trouble hanging on to the football. And if you look at this Ohio State defense's ability they forced a lot of loose balls. And again, I'm still waiting for that big turnover game from the defense that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks. that could be a factor. Ball security for Nebraska has been a factor at times this year. Nearly cost them the game against Illinois, and it was a huge factor in their loss to Colorado. Could be a big factor this Saturday night.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Paige, so what I was going to say to you earlier about, like, you said the fan base of like the Buffs fans, like, but I mean, they're in Boulder, dude. Do you really think they care? I mean, really, dude.
Hey, dude,
is the game over, man?
They care about the next nugget of Kind Bud they're going to get. I tell you that.
Exactly. Whoa.
Hey, don't until you've been to Boulder. It's pretty goddamn fun. Just let me say. And it's isn't it the 25-year anniversary? Why not bring it up on the Buckeye podcast? The 25-year anniversary of the Cordell Stewart to Westbrook Hail Mary. That was awesome.
Nice.
Oh, in the big house. Nice.
In the big house.
Fire. Yes. Khakis, man. He is just getting a shout from all of society.
It's been a rough week for Michigan fans. Hey, so while I got you guys, there are some other interesting games around the country and around the Big Ten, actually. Do we want to talk about some of these other matchups here? How much time do we have? You guys doing good on time, or we need to wrap this thing up?
All right, Z, real quick, though, we've got Jimmy came in with his prediction. He's calling,
go ahead, Chad.
He's calling 42-13.
42-13. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wow. We got Jimmy on record for 42-13. That's well, it seems as though all of us like them to cover. We like Ohio State to cover. I hope we're not going to eat our. I hope we're not going to eat our words, but I'm feeling pretty confident. Yeah. One matchup around the Big Ten that stands out to me is the Penn State Maryland matchup. That's a night game. It's on FS1. It's at Maryland. Penn State's a 6.5-point favorite, but we've got a pretty explosive Maryland offense. Would not be surprised if Maryland comes out of that one with a victory. Because I don't really think Penn State's 12th in the country right now. I don't know that they played all that well, and I kind of feel like we don't really know who Penn State is. They've lost a lot of good players, starting with McSorley and several others. So that's a game I'm going to be paying attention to. Clearly, Penn State is a team that we're going to be up against in the Big Ten East for the division crown. That's one I'm watching. Do you guys care to comment on that game?
What I find crazy is that Maryland comes out, they kick the shit out of Syracuse, and then the following week they get beat by Temple, and then Penn State's coming into College Park only favored by 6.5 points. That is just crazy to me. So I
think that's respect.
Yeah, so
I think that's respect for that Maryland offense, right?
Yeah, and I think it's some on the flip side of that, some disrespect to Penn State's ball club. So it's just kind of crazy. They lose to Temple, and now they're only getting 6, and it's kind of crazy. But anyways, I would love to see Franklin lose that game.
And isn't that Penn State Maryland game a bit of a mini rivalry game? Those states are next to each other, and seem to remember that there's more animosity there than you might think, just because they're neighbors.
Yeah, you're right, Tom. You're right.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim.
But still, Penn State rolled up 70 points? Was it last week? 70 points, or the week before?
Yeah.
And they go into Maryland after just losing to Temple, and they're I guess they're the rivalry. Obviously they don't do ESPN stories about that rivalry, but.
Hey, Tim, you had a view of another Big Ten matchup that we talked a little bit about before we started recording. Did you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now that I know you guys talked about it last week, so I won't go over it again. But looking at the spread, I will take Rutgers and 27.5 points against that Michigan offense. I know Rutgers is terrible, but so is Michigan. And I think given all of the discussion that went on this week about get rid of Harbaugh and he's lost the locker room and the players don't like him and whatnot, I think there's an opportunity there for Rutgers to give them a game and certainly keep it within 27.5. So That's where my money's going on that game. That'll be another embarrassment.
That's an early one too. So you tune in and an early little over brunch, over mimosas. Let's see what Michigan does. I was also Go ahead, Paige.
How bad is Rutgers? What's their record?
They're 1-2. They're 1-2. They have a season opening win against UMass, 48-21. They lost in week 2 to Iowa at Iowa, 30-0. And then they played Boston College in week 3 and lost 30-16. Who knows? You never know. It could be. It could be a game.
I'll take that action, Timmy, for $20.
You're done. You're good.
So I think my letdown, my potential letdown game of the week could be Northwestern visiting Wisconsin. Sleepy noon kick. Well, I get noon kick in Madison. Wisconsin's riding high. They're coming off a big win over let's face it, a Michigan team that none of us really believe in. So we question really how big of a win was that. And I know Northwestern they struggled. They're off to another slow start, but I would not be surprised to see that one going into the fourth quarter. We might be looking at a Northwestern 17-14 lead. Wow! Keep an eye on that game. That one could be one could be interesting. Yeah,
the Wildcats are getting 24.5.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I would not be surprised I'm not calling the upset, but I would not be surprised if that one's closer than the experts think it will be.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, Ched, there was one other thing one other game on the national landscape, and then I'll let you guys go. I know it's getting late on the East Coast. Chad, you mentioned a game on the national landscape that you thought might be pretty interesting before we started recording. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I got just real quick because I know we're running out of time here, but and you guys can always PM us or DM us if you guys want some real legitimate picks. We'll take some kickbacks on this, but I'm going to take North Carolina getting 27 from Clemson. I think Mac Brown has brought a new Flavor Flav into the Tar Heels campus down there. I think they're going to cover over Clemson, and I also will take Virginia getting 12.5 against the Irish. So those are my two picks from the national landscape. And Trevor, he has not done much this year, dude. He's had 5 interceptions. He's not having a stellar year, dude.
He's not even in a bit, hasn't he?
He's not even in Heisman talk.
Tim, you got anything to say about those two matchups?
I'll take both that action. Done. I'll take.
Paige,
you want that, TVH?
Yeah, the exact opposite of what he just fucking said.
Hey, we got Van Bookie on the other line, dude. Van Bookie, all right.
Yeah. I got Clemson, the Golden Domers, and
Michigan.
Michigan. Nice.
Awesome.
I will say I would love to see somebody give Clemson a game. I hope North Carolina can do it. Lawrence isn't having quite the year that he had last year, and one of these weeks Clemson might be gettable. And given the fact that they play nobody in their conference, I'm not sure they can afford a loss. So, if there's an upset, you can kind of look out for that. And I agree. Mac Brown's a great coach, and if he's got those guys playing, I think that I agree with Chad. I think that's a super interesting game.
Hey, can I say one more thing though? UCF, they've been just toot their horns about being undefeated for 4 years. Who did they get beat by last week?
Pitt.
UCF went down. Pitt, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was
Thanks
a big
for
one.
playing.
All right. Hey, thanks for playing. Fellas, any other games you want to bring up here before we shut it down?
No, don't bring any more up. I'll be broke if I lose them all.
I just want to remind the listeners, you're listening.
Timmy, we can Venmo Paige. We'll have something coming in a couple days from now.
Just keep mine on credit, Paige, and I'll take another package.
Yes. I don't send cash. You get Colorado product for any debit from Mr. Van Horn.
And don't forget to PM or DM us for all the latest picks.
All right. Hey, I just want to remind the listeners you're listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Fellas, any other comments before we go, or are we ready to wrap her up?
I think we're good.
Go Bucks.
We're good, man.
All right, good. All right. Hey, fellas, thanks for making the time. Go Bucks, and we will talk again on Sunday morning.